I don't think happens is that there's a gap, and I don't know whether that's my fault. I suppose it has to be really, between people understanding or linking anything to my thesis.
Yeah, it does need the bridge. It needs the bridging narrative, so that you take some real concerns that you've got with existing contexts that you're in literally direct contact with, and then just the bridging narrative, which can actually very clearly show, I think, the significance of your doctoral inquiry for helping to enhance the quality of the experiences within the context that you're working in. You know, it's that I would think that these resources that I'm talking about could actually provide those kind of bridging narratives.
Yes, because it isn't, I suppose it's never referred to.
No.
And yet you can see where it's relevant.
Yeah.
I can see where it's relevant.
You can see where it's relevant. And it's actually showing within, for example, some of the details of the workshops that you've run. You know, I still have got that image of Shaun in that addiction conference where I had the helicopter view of how he was moving round in that inclusional way within a space, drawing people in, encouraging them to participate. And for me, that was a very powerful, not just image, but actually a lived experience that I had, showing the dynamic of the relationships that Shaun was establishing within that space to draw people together, literally within an energized and actually responsive community.
Yes, and we would refer to that as a creative process.
Yeah, that's right.
Although there isn't an artifact. You know, there wasn't a production at the end, or there wasn't a picture, or there wasn't a pot or anything. But the process is a creative process, isn't it?
Do you know, it is exactly that. I don't know if I can just send you this, but if you just look at this title that's just coming through. Have you got that? You might just have to accept it.
Creative ways of documenting.
Research in improvement of one's own practice and related validity issues. Now, I'm doing that in Akershus College in Norway on the 3rd of February. They've asked me to go over, and I'm using the multimedia work that I did in Africa to actually show the staff there how they can integrate these multimedia accounts, you know, as a creative way of documenting research, literally an improvement of one's own practice. Now, it's this feeling that if we worked on this idea of, you know, Marian and Shaun Naidoo, you know, and it's Shaun and Marian Naidoo in relation to just emphasizing different aspects of the work that you're actually doing, and that we have got, even if it is just 2 or 3 pages, rather like I put in that reflections document, that actually allows you to communicate something about, when I talk about your embodied values, the values that you express, which literally giving meaning and purpose to the life you're living, and that you connect those to the practices with the knowledge and the skills that you actually express within the workshops. Am I making sense here? Because it's that resource that I do think is missing at the moment from the internet, which will make such a difference to communicating what it is that you're doing as you try and influence different contexts.
I suspect we need a third party though, Jack, because one of the conversations that we were having this morning was to do around, we've got, on Friday morning, we joined a group of MA students up at Winchester in the second stage of a creative process revolved around a conversation to do with methodologies, very different methodologies.
Yeah.
That come from the staff, Dave, Professor Tim Prenke, and the EMA course leader, Greg. Now, on Friday, we've done that first stage. We've collected that. You know, we've got 2 DVDs, 2 hours worth of conversation, where we've recorded just verbatim the conversation. Now, I've sent it back up to them as a resource, because it's their conversation as well as mine, yeah? And they're going to review that before we meet on Friday. on Friday, we're going to meet with the students, the MA students. And what we're trying to do is, because one of the things we were asked to do this morning was to provide a framework upon which this meeting will happen. Because for the first time, you've got three very distinct values in those three lecturers, members of staff, who have contact with the students. One's talking about, one's a sociologist, and he's talking about emergence, relational dynamics, and the role of the jester to bring an honesty, a very rough and direct honesty through very rough and direct questions to the processes that everybody engages in. You've got Dave talking about dialectics and sharpening contradictions, but within a political context, where his expression is very clear that the normative system that exists disables people from thinking creatively, thinking constructively and consciously. And you've got Greg, who's gone through a number of identities. He used to be a psychologist, he's now a filmmaker and leader of this MA course. Now here you have, in the MA course, you have 5 very mature students, because they're doing the MA, some of them with a lot of lived experience under their belt. And what the framework that we're trying to talk about today was to do with how what brings these 3 members of staff together is the need for them to facilitate the students into creating a much more authentic identity. Whatever, authentic's probably the best word I can find at the moment. And to communicate in real terms. Now our task on Friday is to do that, is to say, look, is this your experience? What's your lived experience? What's your lived experience in terms of being a learner, in the context of having these 3 teachers,
They're also, I think, most importantly in this context, the practitioners. The staff aren't. And there is, and one of the questions that I want to ask them, but won't be able to frame it in this way, is, are they pressured by a political ideology? And, or is that kind of someone's belief but separate to their experience as learners?
Yep.
Because for me, I mean, if you know, to take 3 steps back, if you look at this wall of men who are running the course, and I couldn't make it to the first bit, and I said to Shaun, did you, because I haven't listened to the tapes yet, but I have to do that by Friday. Did you ask the question, where are the women? And particularly when they have, I think the course itself is probably heavily dominated by women students, isn't it?
I think so. It probably is. Yes, it is.
And not that that's necessarily an issue. It's just that I know the work of these individuals, and I have, I've come across the kind of, I suppose it's the WRP influence in political theatre, if you like, and I just want to know what the lived experience of the students is, and what we want to know from this